Thank you. Welcome to OKI. Want to kick things off. We have Brian Mooney-Bullock with Green Umbrella, and she's going to share with us a few words to kind of set the tone. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. And can everybody online hear okay? We can see you. Awesome, great. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ryan Mooney-Bullock. I'm the Executive Director of Green Umbrella, Greater Cincinnati's Regional Climate Collaborative. And we are so thrilled that each of you are here today. And we know that there's many more folks who are going to be joining the steering committee. My team member, Savannah Sullivan, has been a part of the planning team that is bringing this all together. And Green Umbrella is thrilled not only that this work is happening, but that all of you and that we get to be involved in it. We think that by being here, you are showing your support for co-creating a regional climate pollution reduction plan. And I just want to acknowledge, as we start to think about this region that we're going to be serving, the 16-county metropolitan statistical area of Greater Cincinnati, that these lands that we are planning for are the unceded and stolen ancestral lands of the Adena, Hopewell, Kaskaskia, Miami, Osage, Shawnee, and Cherokee peoples. And we want to keep that in our minds as we're going through this process. So this afternoon, you're going to hear a lot about the Thrive Together Sustainability Playbook, what it will be, how we're going to develop it, and how you can engage your communities in being a part of that plan. But I want to emphasize just how important this plan can be for our region moving forward. So we're not just talking about reducing emissions, which we all know is really important. We're talking about what that means. We're talking about envisioning a future that includes cleaner air, healthier people, improved and accessible green space, lower operating costs, fresh food, family-sustaining jobs, and equitable access to all those things and so many more. A playbook like this can help our region share regional tools and knowledge, increase public support and political will, and take collective action together. Action that, yes, will help us reduce emissions, but will also help us increase opportunity while really shaping our region into the vibrant community that we want it to be. And the work that's happening here is part of a much bigger effort. So this is a national effort. 78 other metropolitan areas are going through this process right now to develop one of these plans. There's also 48 state level plans and 87 tribe and territory plans that will also help unlock even more opportunities that our communities can connect into. And by digging into the planning process itself, we hope that you can truly get to know the folks and their communities and the organizations and the perspectives that they represent, so that we can build a legacy of shared wisdom and collaboration that can last for way longer than this federal funding that we're hoping to tap into is available for. So I encourage you, as you go throughout this process, not just today, but over the next few years as we're working on this plan together, to really get curious, share openly, ask tough questions, and bring your communities meaningfully into this work so that we can co-design a plan that's truly going to elevate our entire region and each of your priorities. So I'd love to let you all get to work and do that, get this thing kicked off. Thanks.
Next up, we're going to do some introductions. First meeting, we all need to get to know one another a little bit better. We're going to go around the room, and then we'll also loop in the folks joining online. What we are looking for is name, the community or organization that you represent, and what's top of mind for your community or organization. If you can tie it into energy efficiency, greenhouse gas emissions, that's great. But recognizing that that may not be the most important things on the minds of your community or organization. You might be new to addressing these issues. So anything that you can tell us what's top of mind to let us know the place that you're coming from, the place that your organization is coming from as we engage together as part of the steering committee. So I'll start off. I'm Andy Meyer. I am senior planner here at OKI, and I am also the project lead, project manager of this project, this endeavor. I work with a great team, and you'll meet many of the members of our partner team working to bring this plan to fruition. And as project manager, sometimes I feel like, you know, this project's managing me a little bit, especially lately. But what's top of mind for me is the steps going into this plan and working towards a goal that this community benefits from this CPRG project, this opportunity that we have. So, and why don't we start down here and we'll kind of snake our way around the room.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rahul Sukharia. I'm from Brumkey. I'm sure you have heard my name. Relatively new with the company. This is my 7th month with the company, enjoying a little bit of it. And I'm from the engineering department at Brumkey, where not only we build and design and build landfills, but also gas extraction to minimize the greenhouse gas. Kind of segueing from what you just said. This is my first time at Tribe Together. Really excited. But when it comes to top of the mind, having an environmental engineering background myself, working on landfills, and I know what benefits landfills provide to the community, either it's a service for solid waste collection, gas extraction for renewable energy sources for our fleet, and overall, you know, providing an avenue for the current situation for solid waste disposal. Overall, there's a lot that goes into designing and compliance aspect from a regulatory standpoint and from a company standpoint that landfills are not usually looked upon as a greatest and the greenest of the industry. But there's a lot that goes behind the scenes that makes it a greener space. But from a community organization perspective, I think providing a service like that to our customers and community is what we do best.
Hello, everybody. Mark Christopher, Mayor of the City of Williamstown. I am newly elected mayor. I've been in this position for 12 months now. And hi, I'm on TV. Hi, Mom, I'm on TV. No, I just like he said, this is my first time at the Thrive Together meeting. I'm very excited to learn and grow in my knowledge and what this is. I do have a lot of thoughts and concerns regarding some of the air pollution, water pollution, and we have I don't know how you would describe it. We have Remke service. What is it called? It's not a dump, but yeah, we have a landfill, and I know that there are different opportunities that we may or may not be able to figure out a partner in. I know I've spoken with the Northern Kentucky Ad District before. I've spoken with the American Municipal Partners, AMP, for the electric. So I'm here kind of today just to learn. I do have some questions. However, I will just hold those until the time comes. But very nice to meet everybody. Thank you for allowing us to be here today.
So my name is Ardith Moore. It's also my first time here at Thrive Together. And I am also excited to be here. I'm a professor of epidemiology at the University of Cincinnati College of Medicine, and specifically the Department of Environmental and Public Health Sciences, which is really the oldest academic Department of Environmental Health that there is in the United States. And I think we're updating ourselves a little bit now. And we've been increasingly, for a long time, looking at environmental contaminants. For example, PFAS is one of the areas, Susan Finney and others. But now we're really trying to get serious about looking at climate change and the impact on the environment and what we can do, and thinking of it as a public health priority for all of us. So glad to be here.
Maeve Mason. I work at Duke Energy. utility strategy director there, and so serve Ohio and Kentucky footprints. And I think top of mind for me, obviously, is you may anticipate is clean, reliable, affordable energy, and making that a part of, or recognizing that as a part of the plan.
Hi, I'm Ava Kalina. I am a senior at Miami University and I'm OKI's land use intern. So I'm really excited to meet all of you guys and hear about the exciting things that will be happening in the region.
Hi, I'm Jacob Sheridan, also a land use intern, Masters of Community Planning program at UC.
Hi, I'm Jeff Thielen, transportation planner at the Northern Kentucky Area Development District. Also happy to be serving on the planning committee for Thrive Together. It's been a great experience. I know Kentucky as a state is in the beginnings of building out their EV charging stations over the next several years, which is very exciting. I'm also kind of just looking forward to see what kind of projects we can bring to the region, and in particular, maybe some of the rural areas of Northern Kentucky.
My name is TJ White. I am the Executive Director of the Center for Local Government. We're a 501c3 whose mission is to provide opportunities for shared services, training, and information sharing to local governments of Southwest Ohio. My area at the top of mind would be to try to identify ways that we can provide opportunities to those governments to participate in this process.
Steve Hayden, City Commissioner, City of Covington, Kentucky. We've dabbled in some pollution containment regarding, for instance, tree canopy. We've had a large tree program going on in Covington for some time to reduce the heat gain, and that helps with the energy efficiency. Also in water resources, we partnered up with Army Corps of Engineers on the Licking River reclamation of the banks, native species, that sort of thing. Top of mind is just exposure to ways and means of regarding pollution containment and reduction.
My name is Edwin Porter. I'm the Executive Director of Infrastructure for the City of Hamilton. In Hamilton, we own and operate all of our utilities, including electric, natural gas, water, wastewater, storm, and our transportation systems, all within infrastructure. I would say within each one of those independent areas, there's probably several areas that are aligned through the Thrive Together program. And I would say that as a whole for Hamilton, we're really focusing on revitalization of our community. We want to have a vibrant place to live, work, and play. And we're trying to figure out how can we leverage our community-owned assets to align with that goal.
Thank you. Andrea Henderson, work for the Department of Transportation, District 8 Planning Department. I'm the LPA coordinator for that department. Really top of mind for the Department of Transportation in Ohio is zero crashes and maintaining our current infrastructure and getting our traveling public to A to B in the most efficient manner and safe manner. But as it relates to our topic today, I would like just point on our carbon reduction projects, our transportation alternative projects, our walkable community projects. And so more and more the Department of Transportation is trying to align with clean energy and that type of thing in mind. So happy to be here and learn and to spread the information that I gather.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Howard Miller. I'm with the City of Cincinnati's Office of Environment and Sustainability. I'm on the planning committee team. Top of mind for me is the city just recently completed our 2023 Green Cincinnati Plan, and it was recently adopted. The plan has many climate actions that are aligned with Thrive Together. And I'd like to see us together create scalable and transformative measures to reduce greenhouse gas so we can meet our goals of a 50% reduction by 2030 and being carbon neutral by 2050. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Savannah Sullivan, the Senior Director of Programs and Climate Strategy at Green Umbrella. I serve as sort of the co-lead alongside Andy with Green Umbrella for the Thrive Together process. And what's top of mind for me, you'll hear plenty from me later today, is equitable community engagement, ensuring that it's meaningful for all communities in our region.
The Regional Climate Collaborative Coordinator at Green Umbrella, and top of mind for me is really just community engagement. I kind of align with a lot of like Savannah's overarching goals, so just really lending support.
Hi everyone, it's Rita Murphy with the City of Oxford. My top of mind is the how. We have a climate action plan adopted. We have community momentum. We have political momentum. Just kind of figure out what we're doing first and what resources are available.
Hello, I'm Tony Staubach. I'm the Senior Food Waste Diversion Specialist with Hamilton County Resource. So that is the solid waste district for Hamilton County. I'm a part of the Hamilton County Environmental Services staff. So I work very closely with our friends at the Southwest Ohio Regional Air Quality Agency because food waste is my focus. And food is one of the largest emitters of carbon. 40% of that gets thrown in the garbage. So we don't like that. And so that's why I'm here today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maddie Chera. I also work at Green Umbrella, where I am the director of the Greater Cincinnati Regional Food Policy Council, where we bring together a group of food systems leaders across the region to work towards a mission and a vision of a resilient regional food system. And, you know, that kind of incorporates resilient production, but also everyone having the food that they want to eat that's healthy and nutritious for them to eat, and also diverting food waste. So we kind of cover the whole food system from beginning to end. And I guess what's at top of mind right now going into holiday season in the winter, there's a lot of us are thinking about community food sovereignty and nutrition security. And I think sometimes that doesn't always seem so easily connected to what we're talking about here today. But it actually is, and something that we are trying to work on is getting regional food products to regional consumers, and shortening that supply chain will really help us with our climate goals, as well as a lot of the food waste diversion and redistribution, and the infrastructure that's needed to do that effectively really helps us meet our greenhouse gas emissions production goals. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about all of that today, and I'm excited to be here with you. So thanks.
Hi everyone, my name is Bamidele Oshamika. I work with Green Umbrella as a regional climate collaborative manager. So basically what I do is try to manage projects to see how to reduce emission, making our local community thrive, engage with local community members, and also trying to making sure that everyone thrives in order to promote their quality of life. So top of mind today is trying to brainstorm together, come with ideas to how to reduce emission in our region, 16 county regions, and also making sure that everyone's life is touched by trying to reduce waste, making food more equitable to people, and also making sure that we reduce pollution in our region. So I'm also fortunate to be part of the planning team.
I'm Travis Miller, Regional Planning Manager for OKI, so working closely with Andy and all of the partners on this project, and now with all of you that are here with us on the steering committee. Very exciting time for OKI as we move forward with this planning process, and just eager to get our sleeves rolled up, hear all of your input, and get the best package we can get together for the region. So.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brianna Maslany Blanchard. I am the Executive Director of the Urban Native Collective, formerly the Greater Cincinnati Native American Coalition. I've been with the organization for about 7 months, but I've spent the last 5 years working in environmental conservation and land advocacy at the local, regional, and national level. And so I sit here today as a representative of nearly 98,000 Indigenous people in our region, understanding that Indigenous resistance has curbed a significant amount of greenhouse gases worldwide, and that we protect over 80% of the world's biodiversity.
Hello, I'm Jenna LeCount with the Boone County Planning Commission. We serve the jurisdictions of cities of Florence, Walton, Union, and the Boone County Fiscal Court. Top of mind in Boone County overall really is a lot of discussion about housing, and specific to this conversation, really the logistics industry and the reduction of emissions revolving around freight.
Hi, I'm Mary Huller. I'm with SORTA. That's the Southwest Ohio Regional Transit Authority that you all probably know as Metro. It's the buses out there. So, our focus has always been sustainability, greenness, equity, and the new one to our game, I think, is the partnership. We haven't always been that strong because we didn't have money in that area, but we're looking forward to be better regional collaborators with everyone. And top of mind is, in order to carry out our projects, which are all focused on increasing transit and increasing the quality of service so people choose transit, and that actually then feeds into the greenness, the equity, the partnering, the whole deal. We rely heavily on grants. So I'll just say, like, it's really imperative that we join those forces out there. And that's what the government is trying to get us to do through these grants. But it's really imperative for us to be successful, that we collaborate with people. So that's the bottom line, whether it's in your heart or not. It's in my heart, but even whether it's is or not, for surviving, we need that.
I agree, Mary. Ollie Kroner, Director of Cincinnati's Office of Environment and Sustainability. I think this is a really unique, interesting opportunity. Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana are 3 of the 11 states without state-level climate action plans. Here we see these states taking some leadership. I think the moment before is a moment for scaling impact. This is a $4.5 billion opportunity in the middle of $50 billion opportunity in the Inflation Reduction Act. So I hope that we really focus on building capacity within the organizations across the region, take this opportunity as far as we can, and look bigger at the opportunity of the next decade.
All right, thanks, Ollie. Now we have several folks joining us online. So when I call your name, why don't you, those not joining us virtually, give the same thing, name, community, organization, and what's top of mind for your community or organization. So first up, going down the list, is Bill Brown.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bill Brown. I'm the Assistant Director for Strategy and Engagement for the Environmental Resilience Institute at Indiana University. Top of mind for me, I guess, is a program that I lead called the Indiana Resilience Funding Hub, and we help rural communities with their capacity to access federal grant funding for their projects around energy and resilience.
Bill. Next up, Jeff Weckbach.
Hello, everyone. Jeff Weckbach. I'm the Township Administrator with Colerain. Really, what's top of mind is just getting a better feel for what our best role is as a community in these initiatives, and then how to deliver the best ROI on some of these strategies as we move forward.
Okay, thanks. Ladidra Wilson.
Hi, my name is Ladidra Wilson, and I am a project manager for community consulting for Elevate. We're based out of Chicago, but I'm based in Columbus, and what we do is we provide assistance for people that are looking for federal grants for climate and environmental justice programs. And so I'm here today to observe you all. I'm here to listen to all your great ideas regarding the CPRG grant.
Mark Jeffries.
Hello, I'm Mark Jeffries. I am a city councilman in Cincinnati. It's already been mentioned, the Green Cincinnati Plan, which we passed about a year ago. The opportunity for me, I spent 17 years with Procter & Gamble. I'm a business owner as well, is really looking at the return on investment, a lot of these opportunities. So for us as a city, for example, we've saved $4 million with our solar installations. So I'm looking at how can we look at transformational impact across these plans, and not just the impact on climate, but also the economics and the return on investment of it. So super excited for this committee, and thank you for pulling it together.
Mark Polsinski.
Thank you. I'm Mark Polsinski. I'm the CEO of OKI. Welcome, everyone. Many of you I know, some of you I don't, and I hope that as we go through this very short-term process, we have to get everything moving very quickly, that we'll come up with ideas that will help local communities, more and more of those communities that are really not in a situation where they can actively engage in projects like this. And so hopefully our ideas will generate a funding source, and that funding source will help all communities, not just the large communities, but small communities as well.
Melanie Nutter.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melanie Nutter. I'm the principal of Nutter Consulting. I am a consultant for the city of Cincinnati. And top of mind for me today, helping them with their federal grant work is, as you've heard already, the Green Cincinnati Plan has been developed, and I'm very curious to see what subset of measures from that plan could be really helpful region-wide and help other communities to reduce greenhouse gas emission reduction goals through this grant. Nice to meet you all.
Joy Pearson. Joy let me know that she was doing double duty on 2 different meetings. So
It's Delhi Township.
yes, Joy is with Delhi Township.
And Rob Franksman sent a message. He's Boone County engineer. He's driving, so he asked that we share his introduction. He's listening in, but he's driving.
Okay. Thanks, Robert, for tuning in. So yeah, Robert with Boone County.
Yes.
Steve Devine.
Hi, Steve Devine with the Northern Kentucky Health Department. I'm the Environmental Health and Safety Director. And for about 18 months, I was the interim district director before we were fortunate enough to steal Dr. Mooney away from Hamilton County. And obviously, we serve a large and varied population. And while we don't have programs necessarily that directly relate to some of the things that are specifically going to be covered in this, as public health in general, certainly have an interest in being involved and working with our community partners. It's a pleasure to be on this committee.
Thanks, Steve. And last but certainly not least, Tim Williams.
Hi, good afternoon. My name's Tim Williams. I'm president of the county commissioners in Union County, Indiana. I've been in that capacity for about 7 years. Before that, I was county council. Top of mind for me today is just getting information on what perhaps could be used in my community, and if not, how I can help the region. So really just to get information.
Great. Thanks, Tim. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being for this. Our next item on the agenda is I want to give you a quick overview of what the CPRG Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program is about. So you have a frame of reference of what we're trying to accomplish, what program we're working within to produce this plan for the region. So the CPRG program, there's $5 billion in total funding. It is one of many programs that the EPA is implementing from the Infrastructure Reinvestment Act. Those that have been involved or looking at the Infrastructure Reinvestment Act, you're probably familiar with a lot of programs focused on solar, focused on EV, different EV measures. This is a little bit different. This is a program where the EPA set it up that we want local communities or states, it applies to states, metropolitan statistical areas, and tribes and territories. We want states and local areas to tell us what are their priorities? How do they want to tackle, how do you want to tackle greenhouse gas emissions? We'll give you money, we'll give you some time to do a plan, a whole lot of time, as you'll see in our schedule. But we want to fund these local priorities. So anything that reduces greenhouse gas emissions is generally fair game to be funded under this program, as long as it shows up within the plan that we'll be producing. There's two main phases to the CPRG program. Phase one is the planning grant, and that's what we're focusing on mainly as a steering committee, and the process that OKI and the partners that you've met during the introduction that we're working towards. There's a phase two. Phase two are competitive implementation grants. So once we have a plan on the books, we can apply for competitive grants to implement that plan. Just to reiterate, you met during introductions a lot of the folks, but OKI is not going it alone on this this project. Far from it. We are working with 5 key partners to bring this plan to fruition. The Northern Kentucky Ag District, Green Umbrella, the Indiana University Environmental Resilience Institute, City of Cincinnati, and the Southwest Ohio Air Quality Agency. It was mentioned this plan is for the 16 county MSA. OKI has relationships in 8 of those counties. Not only do our partners bring a wealth of expertise, but we also cover a lot of the geography of our planning area. So it's key having those relationships intimately involved in producing the plan. As I said, the MSA, it's 16 counties. You can see the geography in the map there. Over 200 political jurisdictions. So it's a lot of ground to cover. It's a lot of ground to cover. And an endeavor like this requires participation, it requires involvement, it requires buy-in. And we are relying on partnerships to spread the word about this plan, about these grant opportunities, and to build the relationships necessary to implement the plan. And you, as a steering committee, you are integral to that process. Not only did we invite you here because of your expertise, your insight into our region's needs, but we invited you here to serve as ambassadors for the plan, to go back to your communities, go back to your organizations, serve as that link between the planning process and the plan and your particular organization and an area in the region that you work with and influence on a day-to-day basis. Planning schedule. So there are 3 main phases to this planning process. The first is a priority climate action plan, PCAP for short. And think of this as a plan executive summary. There are 4 key components to that. Preliminary inventory, preliminary list of greenhouse gas reduction measures. Low income disadvantaged community benefit analysis. So looking how those greenhouse gas reduction measures benefit defined communities within the region that are set forth by EPA, and review of authority to implement. So that's basically for each of the reduction measures, who's involved, who's the stakeholder, how do we get this idea from plan to implement it. It's due March 1st of next year. So that's the crunch time, and the reason for that date is timed with the implementation grants. EPA is pushing out the implementation grants next spring. There is a requirement or the deadline for the implementation grant opportunity is April 1st. And anything applied for needs to be tied to the priority climate action plan. So that's why it's a big rush to get this kind of executive summary plan on the books. So our region, all the regions and states participating in this program can apply for implementation grants. However, that's not the end of the process. The next phase is working on a comprehensive climate action plan. So we need to quick get our ducks together for the grant, but we have more time to produce a thorough, well-rounded plan that's due summer 2025. And plan implementation is going on the whole time. Summer of 2027, we have to turn in a summary report, basically update some sections of the plan based on our activities and implementation over the 2 years that transpire after that, as well as document how we've gone about implementing the plan. I mentioned low-income disadvantaged communities. We do have to track the benefits of our proposed implementation measures to communities that are defined as such by the EPA. This is a map of the LIDC census tracts. When we are looking at a benefits analysis of the plan proposals for implementation projects, we will be asked to also look at how these census tracts would specifically benefit from those projects. I wanted to put this in front of you. It's also on your handout there. Schedule of steering committee meetings. We've put forth 7 meetings of this committee throughout that 4-year timeline planning process. Today, what we're looking at doing is introductions. We're also looking for your feedback on our community engagement plan. In February, we'll bring everyone back together ahead of when the priority plan is due. Get your comments and feedback on the priority plan. And then in September, we're starting right after the priority plan is done. We're launching right into the comprehensive plan. In September of next year, we'll come together. Among other things, we'll be reviewing a lot of information that goes into that comprehensive plan, but we'll be in particular discussing greenhouse gas reduction targets. And we'll be meeting several more times there with the plan or the focus of those meetings as well. This isn't set in stone. You know, this is a fluid process. So if needed, we can change things around, add or take away meetings. But this is our idea right at this time. Also wanted to let you know the steering committee composition. So who did we invite? Who do we feel makes up the best group to provide input on this planning process? Obviously, we're planning for 16 counties, invited a representative from each of those counties, 21 cities and townships. 11 of those have a portion of their area or are in one of those areas designated as low-income disadvantaged communities. Organizations from 3 states, 15 nonprofits, 4 chambers of commerce, 4 institutions, so educational institutions, hospitals, and 5 utilities. In addition to the full steering committee, we foresee the possibility of having a couple of working committees, one around equity and engagement, possibly another centered around accountability and record keeping. And there's the possibility of others. So you see the need for a working committee to really focus on a certain issue. We are open to facilitating that. So I will pause there. Does anybody have any questions about the CPRG program as a whole, kind of high level, or the steering committee? Yeah, Mary.
Yeah, it's kind of a thought. So it was a good summary that you put forward because it's a pretty, it's a hard document to read. I think to get your head around it, you know. And then, so there's the first is the planning stage, and then you can also apply for grants like before that final plan is done, right? So do we need to have the projects that we would be going for grants for implementation? Do we have to probably have this mentioned within the initial document that we submit?
Yeah, so anything that we would contemplate applying for as a region for CPRG, the phase 2 grants would have to show up in the priority plan, the PCAP document. We'll talk a little bit more in depth later in the agenda about the phase 2 implementation grants, but that's a good thing to remember is there needs to be coordination between this planning process and the implementation grants. Yeah, mate.
You might get into this later too, so I apologize. But as part of the phase 2, weird. As part of the phase 2, do you have to specify when applying what tier you're going after? Like you've listed them out and how many they anticipate awarding at the, can you just blanketly apply or and say we want this much money, or does it have to kind of squarely fit within one of those tiers, do you know?
I think they're looking at, right, putting grants, but there is no cap. So it's not saying like, oh, you're a small region, so you can only apply for this much, and you're a big region, you can apply for more. I think it's more internally for EPA to check themselves and make sure that they're giving out a variety of types of grants.
Right, so you don't have to specify, I am applying for tier B, like, okay.
No, I think it's obvious, you know, from what you're asking for, what tier. I don't know if there will be a strategy involved with that, or if there's more information that will come out.
Maybe, again, this is a great opportunity for all of us to serve and participate. So I'm reluctant to say something, but I'm going to do it anyway. But just what's always critical, and I think we all know it, we see it in all aspects of all of our work, is who's at the table matters. That's, you asked for comment on the steering committee. I think it's a fantastic steering committee, but I'm not personally seeing the low-income communities that we're trying to serve represented. And I'm kind of asking about that, is what I'm asking.
I noticed Grant County was on there. I'm here.
Yeah.
Not to be disrespectful, but I am
All right,
here.
good.
Yeah.
And that's part of it.
Yes, we did try to cover our bases, and we did look at broad representation on the committee, and there are, as I mentioned at the beginning, there are a number of folks that aren't in the room today, either because they're committed but they couldn't attend this particular meeting, or we've reached out, didn't get a response, but we're going to continue to reach out and bring folks into the fold. Hopefully in February, the room is much more crowded, but that, within our engagement efforts, which Savannah will talk about here in a couple of minutes, and through our process of kind of hashing out who are we inviting to the committee, we were very much, looking towards having that representation, specifically broad representation on the whole.
Appreciate the answer.
I would also just, you don't need to pull a slide back up, it's on the handout, but the composition of the steering committee where we note the number of municipalities, there's a footnote there. There were 11, I think was a number.
That were
delegates that are designated that we specifically invited representation from on the steering committee. That was in the fine print there, but the blue circles, the composition of the steering committee. You see the circle that says municipalities. That's what that's. Yeah, so a total of 21 cities and townships, 11 of those are the 11 communities that are all within low income or disadvantaged community designation or a portion of. So we pulled those out and we targeted those communities specifically to have a seat at the steering committee. Thanks, Andy.
Any last minute questions? Okay, great. Well, I will.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces, but also several new faces. some of you can see me sitting down here on the side of the room, my face. So I'm going to be talking about our equitable engagement approach. Nobody's passing out some background material for you all to just have on hand. It's mostly to be able to level set before we kind of really dig in on some of the nitty-gritty, some shared terminology, and so that you can understand some of the perspectives that the planning team has been coming from as we've thought about what does equitable like across such a large and, you know, not only not large geography, but a very diverse set of communities across that geography as well. So I'm going to kind of dig in and cover some of these topics, and I will have a Q&A section at the end of our portion here so that you can ask any questions about any terms or approaches you're not familiar with. So, you know, feel free also to reach out to me via email if you have any questions. But yeah, wanted to level set with just first our conception of equity. What does it mean to be in pursuit of equitable engagement across 16 counties? I pulled a definition here from Policy Link. This is a definition our team has enjoyed using. You know, we are working towards a just and fair inclusion into society in which all can participate, prosper, and reach their full potential. But digging into that a bit deeper, what does it actually mean to operationalize on the concept of equity is what a huge portion of this work will be about, but also specifically what the EPA is looking for through the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program. That map that Andy showed earlier about the different census tracts, that is pulled from a tool called the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool that agencies across the federal government are using in order to target 40% at minimum of all investments from federal grants into communities across the country. So having a meaningful way of operationalizing, you know, equitable outcomes as well as engagement is going to be really crucial to us having a successful implementation grant as well as a comprehensive plan in the end. So I'll just cover really quickly, you know, some key forms of equity that we've been talking about in our planning team. Recognition equity, the importance of, you know, acknowledging and identifying the fact that there are distributional inequities across our region will be key, and that these populations do require us focusing and micro-targeting services and uplifting their voices into this process due to sort of historical disenfranchisement, underservice, and more. Procedural equity, and that's what you know, this engagement process is really trying to ensure that we deliver on, is not only ensuring that we have kind of an inclusive process. I appreciate your comment and your question, Ardith, but also making sure that we, as we move towards creating new structures, that we are thinking very consciously about how are we building trust with communities that have very good reason to maybe be skeptical of sort of large institutional and unfortunately very fast-paced efforts such as this. Unfortunately, we do not control the timeline on this. I assure you we would not be having this timeline if we did. But also that we're thinking about present-day communities as well as communities in the future. Distributional outcomes, that's probably the form of equity we're all most familiar with and thinking about most intentionally in our daily lives is what are the actual outlays of, you know, the work that we're doing? Is it reaching the communities who need it most? But also the burdens, who are the communities that are experiencing the burdens most? These last two might be new for some folks in the room. They were certainly new to me over the last 5 years as I've gotten deeper into this work, but restorative equity is how can we actually, through this process and in the plan that we develop, really make commitments in order to correct any past harms and facilitate repair in communities that have been underserved and disenfranchised through large investments, institutional policies, so on and so forth. And the big picture, and what I think is really exciting about having this steering committee here, as well as the engagement process that we can undertake together over the coming years, is transformative equity. So what does it mean to actually reimagine the status quo of not only how does environmental work happen, but there's a lot of crossover and intersectionality with how environmental work can connect to other issues, many of the issues that you all shared in our introduction here. A huge portion of that, and what this steering committee is certainly tasked with, is making sure that we are accountable to the communities that we are representing, and that we are trying to ensure that their voice is centered and elevated in this planning process. So on the handout, you'll also see, and folks online, you should see some chats with links to these documents or files attached in the chat. I encourage everyone on the steering committee to really think about different types of accountability. What does your position mean for you individually to be accountable to each other on the steering committee and to be accountable to your communities? And not just communities that you work with and represent, but also communities that you might interface with and be interfacing with for the first time. I did include some examples that I'm not going to go through in detail, but what it could look like, and I want this to drum up ideas for y'all, to actually be a more transparent and accountable type of steering committee, as well as, you know, what does it mean to have a culture of accountability between ourselves as well as with our communities. And you'll see some of the structures as I move through the slides that we've been working on to help kind of assist this effort across 16 counties. But just know that we're definitely open to any of your ideas. We want to hear what has worked for you in your communities and your organizations to really be transparent and be accountable. So another huge portion of thinking about equity, and in particular procedural equity, is of course equitable engagement. And I'm not here to, you know, say like, here's what engagement is, because I know that all of us and all of our bodies of work engage people all the time, and we all have best practices, we all have challenges. And so what I really want to highlight here is not sort of, you know, this is what engagement is for the plan. It's more so, what are some of the ethoses? What are some of the shared visions that we can have for this type of undertaking? And what can engagement really look like? We'll absolutely be seeking your input on this, but I wanted to provide some background on some of the conversations to date on the planning team. And the starter here is we want to really move from more transactional style engagement to something that's more transformational. So what do I mean when I say that? Here is kind of a spectrum of community engagement to ownership. How many of you have seen this spectrum before? Okay, I see a few hands. Great. Well, I am going to kind of talk through it a little bit and share with you just some examples from my own background. You know, I've worked in climate planning specifically through local government and nonprofit sectors for about 15 years. So I've seen a lot of different fits and spurts of engagement, but transactional engagement, that kind of is what it sounds like it is, where you're just sort of like, oh, I'm required to engage communities. I'm going to post something online to make it open to folks. They'll come if they see it. I check the box. And that if they come, you know, I get information from them, and that's that. And hopefully they see themselves in the plan at the end. That's a bit transactional in the sense that it's heavily centered on what does the engager need in that moment to check a box for some process that they've developed internally, which of course we are all here because we are, you know, part of a process that the EPA has tasked us with and that we've opted into. But we want to do more than just check the boxes. We want to be able to go in and reach communities. We definitely understand part of inequality and inequity in our communities is there can be a lot of disparity between which communities are, you know, being invited to certain spaces or being reached out to for certain types of engagement. So this spectrum is really important as we think about where do we want to kind of go towards? We'll have a lot of different types of engagement. Not all of them will kind of be all the way to the right. But we want to make sure that we aren't, ever ignoring any communities. And so you can see here on the right, different sets of goals. If we don't invite and if we don't, incorporate sort of inclusive decision-making processes into what we do, the message we're sending to different communities, especially if there are, more communities than others present in a space, is that they don't matter. And this is something that, we're going to try not to do at all. And we're not saying that it'll be perfect, but we definitely want sort of your recommendations to ensure that we aren't in this left column. I think there will be a mix of 2 through 5, depending on the type of, timeline that we're on for different portions of our engagement. But we want to make sure that we have a mix of, we are making communities aware, sharing all the information. This is definitely an inform heavy meeting today because you guys are just learning about this. But we will have moments like that where we're just trying to spread the word. But then how can we evolve that into more meaningful types of engagement? Because I think there are opportunities where we'll be able to consult communities. We care what they think. We want to get their comments. We want to get their feedback to inform the plans and the implementation strategies we create. Involve, collaborate, and defer to are kind of the key goals in the long run of community engagement, where it's not just about getting folks in the room, getting their feedback and saying, see you later. It's how can we ensure that we are aligning any goals that come from Thrive Together with existing goals in community groups and institutions that are already doing a lot of work that is aligned with the goals that we're talking about here today. How can we make sure that they're part of this process and that our process reflects their priorities so that it makes sense to collaborate with different communities? And I think in the long term, where are there opportunities to be able to foster ownership of a lot of the strategies that we'll co-develop so that, this isn't just a top-down sort of regional plan, it's a menu of opportunity. And we really want to see this process for Thrive Together as an opportunity multiplier. Because one thing we say at Green Umbrella is that climate change is a threat multiplier to pretty much every issue we interface with on a daily basis. But this type of work that we do collaboratively can be an opportunity multiplier. So we have, done a lot of work to date to make sure that we're in a good enough place to kind of jump off into conversations with you all as a steering committee. And as you see, a subcommittee that we'll be structuring so that we can create an inclusive, a diverse, a meaningful engagement plan. And I've just listed a handful of approaches that we will be sending around in a planning document for you all to provide feedback on. But there's a lot of different ideas out there. We've researched regional climate collaboratives and other regional planning initiatives across the country on how have they done this before. This climate pollution reduction grant process is not the first time anybody's made a regional climate action plan. Southeast Florida, because they're sinking, has had a regional climate action plan for decades now at this point, because it's been such an urgent issue. And what we're seeing is urgency is everywhere in different forms. So, some of the ideas that we've been working on and toying around with that we'll seek your feedback on are, do we want to create sort of county-based mini teams to make sure that we are geographically representative and deeply diving into sort of the unique nature that our 16 different counties have? Do we want to have working groups that are issue-based? And I do think there's going to be value in having a mix of approaches. I'm not saying any of these are mutually exclusive, but being sure to have kind of cross-pollination across issues such as transportation or emergency management. Because one thing that's very clear is that climate change issues do not respect political boundaries. They don't care what jurisdiction you're in. your neighboring jurisdiction's flooding can very easily become your jurisdiction's flooding. So how can we create collaborative solutions across our 16 counties? It's really important that we acknowledge and characterize who are the communities that have historically been underserved, disenfranchised, et cetera, and just are right now on the front lines of climate impacts. So we know for sure our rural communities are at extreme risk and at lower capacity from a lot of different elements of sort of climate change. And other frontline communities, specifically BIPOC communities, so Black, Indigenous, people of color, tend to experience an inordinate amount of sort of the impacts from climate change. How can we create dialogue spaces for populations that need this attention? And how not most importantly, but last but certainly not least, is how can we leverage existing efforts? And we're definitely going to be relying on you to learn more about other efforts that are happening. Then they don't have to be regional in nature, but happening within our region. For example, Northern Kentucky ADD, they've been working on an energy resilience plan and a future hazard mitigation plan. No need to recreate the wheel, right? How can we leverage, elevate all the hard work that they've already done into this 16 county regional vision? Because there's a lot to learn from that. I also wanted to highlight the Climate Safe Neighborhoods Partnership, which is a partnership between Green Umbrella and Groundwork Ohio River Valley. That is all about how can we truly acknowledge, kind of historical patterns, policies, practices that have led to segregation, discrimination, and how is that manifested to great and tremendous disparities at the neighborhood and census tract level, which we saw a map of. Those things don't happen by accident, and it's important that those frontline voices get elevated into planning processes, and that's what that partnership has been doing at the neighborhood level. And I know there's many more bullet points, and we want to hear from you. In fact, I'm going to ask for Novi again to hand out these worksheets, which I'm going to ask you all to kind of begin sharing some thoughts today. Travis has shared the link in the chat as well for folks online. We'll also be sending a follow-up email if there are additional copies to share after today's meeting. But the tactics can be diverse. We have the capacity to host in-person engagements, virtual engagements, and I also want to share that we have worked really hard to create an online engagement hub. So we have a platform called Citizen Lab, and it's super cool. And y'all are going to have your very own special steering committee folder on Citizen Lab, where we're not only going to be highlighting the outcomes of individual steering committee meetings, the minutes, the slides, so that it's super transparent what's happening in our steering committees and the sort of associated subcommittees. Also, any tasks that we're asking from you all, it can happen in here. We're not going to be meeting super frequently. We want to stay engaged. So you all connect with the process as much as possible and leverage your expertise as much as possible. So after today, you will see you're going to get your first kind of steering committee activity on Citizen Lab, where it's just going to be introducing yourself so people can see who's on the steering committee across our 16 county area. So that is just an example of what Citizen Lab can do. What it is a very specific platform that has been created for local governments, regional entities, and more to have a super transparent online way of engaging folks in a way that has truly exponentially increased access to communities and made it much more just accessible for folks who might not be able to travel to an in-person engagement session or even be able to take time to attend a virtual engagement session. How can we create surveys and other ways to hear from those folks? That's what Citizen Lab allows. And it also allows us to kind of click in and actually sort of see what other people are thinking. It can allow for prioritization and voting efforts. If people want to come in and say, hey, I like this strategy, we really need to prioritize this one. We have this to work with. I'm not going to go into all of the different capabilities right now of what Citizen Lab can do, because truly, I I could talk for another hour. But we're going to work closely with the engagement subcommittee to make sure that, if there's some key tools that Citizen Lab offers, we want to be able to hear from you, leverage them, and our team will work to build those out. So as mentioned, the Equity and Engagement Subcommittee is a subcommittee we know for sure that we need from you all to ensure that we are not only focusing, and displaying to communities what does it mean to be equitable, because it's one thing to just publish it in a plan and be like, we thought about equity, but it's not just about outcomes with equity and engagement, it's about the process. And a key step towards a process is building that collaboratively. So we want to invite you to join this subcommittee. And the goal will be to work closely with portions of the planning team, make sure that this process is equitable, transparent, accountable, and that we're centering these groups here and more in how we ensure that we're not just perpetuating status quo as we move through this plan. We're seeking participants, who either have lived experience, expertise, or interest in these topics here. And we'll ask that, you can scan this little QR link. You'll also receive this in a follow-up email. But all you have to do is just fill out this participation form to be part of the subcommittee. And the expectations are going to be, thankfully for you all, pretty minimal in terms of how much time we're asking from you, but we want to make it meaningful and deep. There will be quarterly meetings. We'll also ask that you, work with us and engage on the online engagement hub to make sure that we are leveraging Citizen Lab as best as possible, that you contribute meaningfully to the engagement plan that the planning team is developing. And the analysis that Andy mentioned earlier, we'll have a session where we talk about what can that analysis look like. We're going to be hiring the consultant to do that analysis with us and to review any of the findings that comes from that analysis. So what's the timeline on this? The timeline mirrors what Andy shared earlier, but I just wanted to call out some core elements of the engagement timeline. So where we are right now, this has been happening pretty fast from the EPA. We've worked to not only create a regional planning team, get everyone up to speed, make sure we're all on the same page, create that online hub, create a steering committee, and build out the infrastructure so that this can move as smoothly as possible, as much as it can across 16 counties. And in the very early stages of 2024, we do have some current engagement planned and identified that will support the preliminary plan as well as the implementation grant that Andy will be talking about more in a second. And also working with the Equity and Engagement Subcommittee to kind of finalize what is the vision for the next year of engagement as we work towards a comprehensive plan. Then we'll submit the preliminary plan and the implementation grant in the spring. But May through December, that will be where we are doing a lot of the heavy lifting to make sure that our comprehensive plan is really being informed by our communities. And we'll submit it. And there will be a whole process of review with the steering committee and the subcommittee that you all will definitely be involved in. So you can scan this right now if you want to pull up on your phone the Citizen Lab website so that you can kind of get a look. But what I'm going to do right now is first answer any questions, but then we wanted to give you time right now in this meeting here to work on this worksheet that I just gave you, because I know I'm asking some big questions. We want some ideas from you right now because we're moving at a pretty swift clip. But first, I want to see if anyone has any questions about what I just shared or the handouts that I shared. TJ.
The QR is also this one, the one that's on the handout that we got earlier.
Yes, yeah. That should be Citizen Lab, right? Yeah.
That's main Citizen Lab, yeah.
You just put QR codes.
Yeah, just save it and you have to go back to slide.
Yeah. Questions? No dumb questions. It can be about any of the background I shared, the process, or if you have an idea that you want to say, is this what you're talking about?
A question just to comment. It's very impressive. I mean, everybody's presentation so far, committee. You know, I guess this will be as successful as how much energy and effort and coordination are being put into it, and it's a good omen so far.
Yeah, just so you all know, you got a robust planning team behind you to make this happen. Great. Well, we're going to give you the next sort of 5 to 8 minutes to work on this worksheet, and please do fill it out. For folks online, please submit the form that we've included. And then you will hear from us on sort of next steps in the follow-up email of how we're already going to be translating some of the ideas that you're sharing today into our planning process and for citizens.
This next section deals with the phase 2 implementation grants. This is kind of hand in hand with the planning process, but it is separate from the actual plan. But wanted to give you a quick rundown of this so you can kind of keep these two, at least for now, parallel activities, correctly in your mind and understanding how it all works within the CPRG program. So phase 2 implementation grants, there's a pot of money, $4.3 billion for states, regions, and tribes across the U.S. The EPA anticipates giving out awards between $2 million and $500 million. So their minimum award amount is $2 million. And as Maeve pointed out, there are actually tiers with anticipated numbers of awards within certain dollar amount that the EPA has listed in their notice of funding opportunity. The notice of funding opportunity is out there. If you Google CPRG NOFO, you'll find it very easily. But as far as the timeline goes, it's coming up very quick. Notice of intent is optional, but they want potential applicants to let them know by February 1st that they will be applying, and applications are due April 1st of next year. So just a few short months from now. As I mentioned earlier, that's timed up with the priority plan that we are producing. And so timelines are very short. Obviously not optimal for the planning process side of things, but the federal government wants to get these awards out and into communities' hands. So some details on this. There is no local match on these funds. And it is a grant, so it is the money is awarded up front, and all funds have to be spent by end of 2027. All those details are in the notice of funding opportunity. Eligible applicants, it's mainly local governments, county governments, and regional governments. So those are the main categories of who's eligible to submit an application. What they are looking and hoping would happen, and strongly encouraging, is that regions will work together to submit consolidated applications. So many projects in one application for the whole region. Any entity, nonprofits, even private entities can be designated as a subrecipient from the grantee. So as a kind of a list of examples of potential projects that could be funded under this grant, this is not exhaustive at all. Really, anything that has a measurable impact on reducing greenhouse gas emissions is fair game. But you can see these are kind of the most common projects that EPA anticipates to be funded. Fleet electrification, mode shift away from single occupant vehicles, so carpools, van pools for commuting, public transportation, energy audits and energy efficient building upgrades for municipal buildings, for residential buildings, especially renter occupied residential buildings. That's a big gap in what has been already served by prior programs. Streamlined permitting for solar, so communities working with the regulations, optimizing it. So homeowners, building owners putting solar on rooftops, putting solar on their property is easy. Programs to reduce the release of hydrofluorocarbons, which are refrigerant gases. Methane released from landfills and wastewater treatment facilities. Programs to reduce fertilizer and water use in farming, which has an effect on emissions through energy use.
Can I ask a quick question? And I don't know the answer to it. Are there the federal requirements around other grants that I'm aware of? Buy America, Build America, do those all apply in this instance?
Federal requirements, as in, like
if materials need to be purchased, do does the Buy America, Build America requirements around those materials pertain?
That's probably, but I don't recall that being specifically mentioned.
They reference all the other federal laws.
Laws and requirements and rules, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
As we get into the weeds with some of those details, we can get clarification.
Right.
All federal laws have to be
adhered to, right? Because it's a flow down. Okay.
So kind of begin thinking about what applies to your community, to your organization, how this might intersect with what you're doing or your organization is doing. Because really what we're in the phase right now of gathering project ideas. Kind of along the lines of our public engagement philosophy. We want this to be as much of a ground up process as possible. We want input from communities. We want input from organizations of what they see in what they're doing can apply to this and what makes sense. It's a competitive grant process. So there is a scoring process that I believe the CPRG handout that was on the table outside kind of lists the categories. There's 7 scoring categories, gives you an understanding on how the EPA is going to be evaluating each region or state's application. You know, so as a region, we're going to want to look through the project ideas we get and optimize that list. But right now, we're in the process of gathering those ideas so that in January and February, we have a great starting point. And we know that as a region, we have a great starting point because we're not starting from scratch. We have the Green Cincinnati Plan. We have the climate safe neighborhoods work that's been going on. Communities like Oxford that have done climate action plans. So we know that there's ideas out there. There on the Citizen Lab website, there is a block dedicated to what is your proposal, where you can click and write a few sentences, submit a proposal idea that we're gathering. Yeah, Mary.
So just kind of to get a good picture, I guess I'm trying to reflect a picture of what you're saying, because the timing is critical here, right? Is how we come together. So what you're asking for initially is ideas of projects that we would submit individually as implementation projects. And then you'll work to combine those into the plan that you would put together, the PCAP or whatever.
Yes.
But then we would be responsible ourselves to submit the application for implementation of that project.
Not necessarily. So OKI, in partnership with the City of Cincinnati and Green Umbrella, we're going to dedicate a team to put a regional application in. So a lot of
for the implementation of the actual project.
for the implementation grants. So it just makes sense with this program and what the EPA is looking for, the types of projects the EPA is looking to fund. They want projects of scale. So, a project idea could come from Metro or it could come from Covington, Kentucky. That project could apply regionally to many communities, to many organizations, other organizations. So it might also benefit Tank. So we're looking for projects that, even though they're submitted, specific to Covington, Kentucky, that we can say, okay, this makes a good regional project, and this is how we can implement it that benefits many municipalities or even
Would
counties.
it be one big project, or are we going to submit something maybe scalable with these different pieces on it that EPA can pick and choose, or,
So it'll be, I think, a regional project. Now, how that gets implemented, whether that's a sub-grant or whether it's like combined purchasing, so for EV vehicle fleets, there may be many communities in the region looking to purchase fleet vehicles. So that's something that's a group purchase opportunity, for example. So we don't really know until we get the list of projects and start strategizing.
How many applications might OKI be sponsoring versus how many kind of doing that separately?
So one application.
So if EV charging is the project selected, that is.
Well, and it's not, so
that
it's
OKI
not
would be
one
submitting?
project, one application. It could be many projects, 10 projects in one application.
but all around that same idea of EV charging, for instance?
No, it could be, in fact, I hope that it's many things so that some organizations, some companies could take advantage of certain project, but not others. So want a diversity of projects so that as many communities, as many organizations can find something in there, maybe a few things in there that benefit them.
Without needing to submit their own applications, is that?
Correct.
Thank you. Clear on that too.
Thank you.
How fast do we need to organize?
So you're going to be doing an inventory of greenhouse gas emissions and all that. So what I imagine, this is a question mark, is that you would want to be submitting those things that would seem to have the most impact that on being able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and be implementable.
Yes.
In a finite amount of time that is allowed.
Yes.
Okay, this
So
is all-
there are many aspects of this to consider what makes a successful project. And a lot of those factors are reflected in the EPA's scoring rubric. So that's a key consideration as we look and pick what are our best projects to put forward.
And I would just like to say that there's a couple of things in the NOFA that are important to look at for implementation that will garner lower scores. So let's say we have 2 municipalities in our MSA that both decide to submit their own application for electric vehicles. That won't be seen very well by the EPA. They want to see us come together as a region and have a regional inclusive EV application where EVs are included in a multi-implementation project application. So we want to be careful of that. The other thing we want to be careful is through IRA and IIJA, there's a lot of funding opportunities that overlap into the opportunity we have in front of us now. What the EPA likes to see is we are filling in gaps that other funding opportunities aren't allowing us to fill in those gaps with, or we are leveraging these other funding opportunities to get the most out of this one, if that makes sense. So there's multiple nuanced strategies behind this implementation grant. The expectation, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the EPA will award up to 2 grants per kind of jurisdictional level within the region. So we would expect up to 2 for the state and up to 2 for the per MSA. And so we need to be cognizant of that as well, that we want to be careful about competing among ourselves, right? We want to be on the same team here.
On that idea of being on the same team, like you were saying about 2 people, like you don't want to submit applications from 2 different people in the same area for the same
thing.
It's a big no-no. I did see an example you could do, okay, say like sort of we have an implementation plan that has some like garages and stuff in it that to support some of the green initiatives. I don't know if that's too specific for the overall application, but we'd like to get in the overall planning, but don't know if that's particularly what you're looking for the one application from this area. But we could be in the planning and then just say, we'll submit individually on that program. That's kind of what I'm looking at. Like, how do you divide that so it becomes a strength and that doesn't look like we're competing, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, the name or the bottom line is there will need to be a significant amount of coordination, not just between the application and the planning process, that's obvious, but amongst communities to make sure that there's not overlap and that strategies are positioned optimally to benefit the most number of communities or organizations, have the broadest benefit to the region.
And following that, I would say that
the communities themselves need to be let loose to turn in whatever the needs are, and a higher level would be to consolidate and look for overlap, et cetera, and not put that burden on communities, because I don't know what to do for it or. from.
Exactly. So that's where, you know, this portal of submitting your proposal, you can view proposals that have been submitted. And then as a team, not the planning team, but call it, if you will, the application team, will be looking at that, and we will be holding engagement sessions around project ideas, so communities know what's in the mix, what's being applied, what opportunities they have to engage with the application.
I think that's great, because I think that all these questions, like, I really don't know when our responsibility, like where it stops. And if we did, like, say with SOAR, if we get too specific and we need to, you know, do an application ourselves, but still have it included in the plan, we don't want to wait till the last minute and say, oh my God, we got to write that, you know,
Right.
Kind of, to your point, get those ideas in there and see what we can create out of the soup, you know? Yeah.
Right. So, go ahead, May.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm switching topics generally.
Okay. So my big ask of you as the steering committee is engage with your communities, engage with your organizations, help us pull these project ideas out, get them into the Citizen Lab portal, get them into the light so that we can strategize and have as broad of a mix of projects to choose from as we move forward quickly towards an application. Yes, Andrew.
When you say coordination, I imagine you'd also want to coordinate, you have, you know, all 3 states here, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, with whatever the broader plan for the community is. For instance, if, I don't know, City of Hamilton already has a plan for some bike trail or whatever, you don't want to put a bike trail into this. Or for instance, the carbon reduction funds have already funded EV charging in Kentucky and in Ohio. You don't want to like overlap that. You'd want to make sure, you know what I mean, that there's not something already being applied for.
Right. In the plan.
Statewide.
Right. In the plan, we want to be broad brush.
Yeah, broad.
And recognize, you know, the different value that initiatives can bring. In the application, right, we want to focus, like Howard mentioned, where a specific project idea has gotten a lot of attention and money before, focusing what are the gaps, you know, what situations have kept certain communities from participating, certain situations have kept certain projects from happening that otherwise would have, and focus on those hurdles.
So a couple questions somewhat related to that, which is, it's not listed as a criteria for evaluation, but I know in several other federal funding opportunities, it has been the idea of braiding funds, i.e. you actually get credit if you are combining federal funding opportunities, right? Like EPA may look favorably on that. Do you have any sense of whether that's a part of this?
It is.
Okay.
So it is part of it where you're aligning things or kind of using this to fill in gaps. But they are very specific that this can't be used as local match for other federal grants and things like that. So there are some situations where yes, or a lot of situations where it's encouraged, some situations where it's actually a no-no.
Okay, yeah, totally. And then the other question is from the proposal perspective in this system, y'all have Citizen Lab platform. How baked do you want these ideas? I mean, I imagine the better it's baked.
Right.
Right, but because otherwise, I mean, you're gonna run the gamut, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It is going to run the gamut, and some of these ideas, you know, what we're going to be doing a lot is taking a local idea or a local situation and, okay, how can this be applied regionally? Is there opportunity for that? And it may change the structure or how that gets implemented. So don't worry about too much about how baked it is. Obviously, if it's really well baked, and it's like pretty easy to move from idea to out the door, that's great for us, for our region, and probably good in the application. But we want to consider everything.
Do you have a deadline when you want those projects in by?
As we turn the calendar to next year, we're going to start turning the focus from gathering projects and we'll still be pulling projects as long as we can. But we're going to start turning our focus towards, okay, what's the list and who do we need to convene to vet these ideas.
You had originally put out a December 1st deadline to kind of all of the communities, correct, to submit some ideas. Are you going to be posting those within here, or is that what
Yes.
you're looking to kind of vet internally?
Yes.
And that December deadline was more of what communities are interested to inform this process, not really project ideas.
Okay, good.
Okay.
But there are project ideas that are already on the site.
Okay.
We've had communities.
Yeah, there are a few on the site. I know I have a spreadsheet of others that people have forwarded me by email that I need to get onto the site, which will be up there shortly. But yes, this portal through the Citizen Lab site is the main way to submit projects, and that way everybody can see them. You can go in there and explore all the projects, see the ideas. I think there's a way to thumbs up and that. So, if something jives with your organization or community, you can kind of through this method very quickly and easily sign on to it or endorse that idea.
Is it, I can't really see it right now because you gotta develop like a password and all that, but like, is it like a fillable form?
Yes, it's a fillable form. It's very short. I think there's only like name, community organization, and then a kind of a block where you can write a few sentences. All right. Well, I know we're coming up on time and we've kind of already covered a lot of the questions. So I wanted to leave you here with next steps. Our focus is drafting the priority plan before that March 1st deadline. We are getting started on the greenhouse gas inventory. A preliminary inventory is due as part of that PCAP. We have some more time under the comprehensive plan to build that out even further. I'll toss the next one to you, Savannah, but there's a climate health equity report. It's not an initiative of this plan, but we see there's a lot of ties between it. Give a quick plug for her explanation of that.
Yeah, so this was a project recently completed by Green Umbrella in partnership with a firm based out of Columbus called CO2 Analysis. We did a 16 county analysis of what are the anticipated health impacts from climate change, and it has projections out to 2050. And so we really strongly encourage all of you as steering committee members to read this report. We'll share it in a follow-up email, as well as view a webinar that was hosted last week. I know a couple of you were on that webinar. And really bake in your understanding of health as it ties to all of these different issues that we'll be talking about as a steering committee, particularly because A, really important, and B, we know that this is a strong emphasis from the US EPA as consideration for project prioritization, as well as future funding opportunities from other agencies.
Yeah, so we anticipate this report will help us give a truly well-rounded approach to our benefits analysis in our plan. Citizen lab engagement. We kind of harped on that a lot, but get into Citizen Lab, get signed in as a user on the platform and use that as a tool to engage with this process, to invite others to engage with the process. The phase 2 regional application, we talked about at length about the timeline, but that's going to be in January and February very intensely. And our next steering committee meeting, mark your calendars, Wednesday, February 7th. I haven't set a time, but it will be here at OKI. Yeah, Maddie, you have.
I mean, you answered my question that we didn't pick a time yet, but I was wondering if you're thinking afternoon that meeting.
Or
morning, or no, or just block the day. I'll block the day so that I can have nothing to do.
Okay. Okay. I do have something in the afternoon, but it's not so important that we couldn't do afternoon. But
Also try an earlier one, since this one is an afternoon. You don't know with this size group, some people are better in the morning.
Yes.
Some are better in the afternoon, so maybe try it to see if the mornings are better.
Yeah.
Either way, it's fine with me. I'm just throwing it out there.
all right. So, yeah, and I will get notices out very shortly about that, but mark your calendars or anticipate Wednesday, February 7th, we'll be getting to get back together. As I said, we are still adding to the committee. Hopefully, have more representation. We're really lacking local government or government at the county level. Folks signed on, so hopefully we'll have a bit fuller room next time. So with that, thank you all for being here. I know 2 hours is a lot, but we covered a lot of ground, so thank you.